This is a Momentum Media production.
Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show, the podcast by investors for investors.
Hello everyone, Grace Ormsby here. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the SBI Show, where we get to tell investors stories to give you an insight into what other people have gone through, to see their trials, their tribulations, the opportunities that they've made along the way. And today is absolutely no exception. It is a pleasure to be chatting with someone who has a pretty amazing story, and I'm excited to be unpacking it. Cristian Basescu, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Cristian, I don't know a lot about your story yet, but I do know enough to be pretty impressed from the outset. Can you give us a little bit of your upbringing? I think that's really, really pivotal to this story before we actually get into the property investment part of this.
Yeah, definitely. So I was born in Romania, in East Europe. It's from a very young age. I was always interested in be able to sell things, and especially the environment I was raised. You kind of have to learn that quite quickly to survive. My father left when I was 5 years old. It predominantly was my mother and I moving constantly house to house and between family, friends. So there's never been much stability early on until one day my mother decided to leave Romania, to move to Italy, to find more opportunities and give a better future. At the time, Europe didn't exist, so everything was much harder in a way. And I was raised with for 2 good years without my mother. So I was with my cousins in this village in Romania. And I always been a little bit, let's say, looking for opportunities unintentionally, even if it was just cards or other things. At the age of 10, 11, I moved to North Italy. I've been there with my stepfather and my mother. I started also my career as a professional dancer, which originally was more just to try because some neighbors were going there. And then the teacher at one point says, I want to have a chat with your parents. They give you some private lessons. And 3 months later, I won my first championship.
Congratulations. 3 months. Wow, that's not very long.
Yeah, which I was quite little and slim, and I didn't even have now when I look back, I didn't even have the proper costumes, and it was quite funny like that because we didn't have the time to get ready. And from there on, that career in the professional ballroom and Latin dancing continued, been doing 3 competitions a month for over 20 years and won the Italian championship, Australian championship, and other championships along the way. But the interesting part through my career is that not only I was doing quite well in the dancing industry, and I always had that skill since when I was little. But as I mentioned, I was always always been driven by business opportunities. How can I have a return on things, even if it was in a smaller scale? Like to give you an example, at one point, I used to purchase this printer where back then you could print on DVDs, right? So I found this website. I used to I bought from eBay all the equipment and find all the website and copy DVDs. I don't even know if it's legal now to say that. Maybe you might cut that if it's not legal.
Yeah.
So anyway, I used to have DVDs, selling DVDs in school, other things from eBay. We used to have also like a home, because it was a countryside house. So we used to have like animals and dogs and rabbits. So we used to go to the markets and pretty much sell them at the markets. So I was constantly involved in one way or another through my even teenage years in selling. So it always came quite natural to me.
The entrepreneurial spirit is alive and kicking in you, Cristian.
Yeah, well, now when I look back with, then start noticing that it starts at a young age and it's always been there. Yeah.
Well, I feel like we've still got a few steps to talk through between growing up in Europe, Romania to Italy, and then obviously now living in Australia and having a property portfolio behind you. The dancing really was what enabled you to come to Australia, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So in Italy, as a beautiful country as it is, with fashion and food and scenery, there's not that many opportunities. Very hard to make a living, or especially in the industry that I'm in. So I knew that I had to first learn also English. That was one of the things that, because in Italy, no one speaks English. So even the movies are translated, the original voice of the actors, I only heard them in Australia watching American movies. So funny like that, right? So being on computers and things, I always wanted to learn English. So, and I knew that I couldn't create a career and opportunity in Italy. So I was looking at moving overseas. So the option were, okay, I moved to England, too close, bad weather. I moved to USA, was very hard with the visa. So the other option became Australia, right? We had a great visa between Italy and Australia and was meant to be a year. So my mother helped a lot in this process to, give me that push across the line, because living also in Italy, the mentality is very like, keep the money in the country, right? Invest in your backyard, that type of mentality. So I finally, found the courage, 21 years old, to go to Australia, which is 2 days to arrive in Australia from Italy, change 2 planes with no English. That was my first time on a plane that far on my own. Nighttime. So you really, everything, as you arrive in the airport, right? You have all these emotions, you're excited. The time you step in the plane and the plane takes off, that's when you're like, okay, my whole life now is in my hands, truly. So I've landed in Gold Coast originally. And that was on purpose because I wanted to stay very far away from Italians so I can actually learn. English. So I couldn't pick Melbourne or Sydney because it's full of Italians.
Yeah.
So I put myself actually in a difficult situation on purpose because I've already had to learn once another language, which was Italian. So I knew how the approach should be. It was just on a bigger scale because I was 21 on my own with only 1 week booked of a hostel through a website. I didn't know anyone. No aunties, no friends, no uncles, no nothing. So I arrived and I was like, with all my suitcases and everything, I'm like, and now what? So,
and I'm like, now what too? Hearing this story.
It was, it was November, Gold Coast, right? 2012. A lot of, Australia is very different than Italy, like completely different, right? Even walking into a bank is completely different. When you walk into a bank in Australia, it's almost like you walk into a supermarket. When in Italy, it's like walking to an airport when you go into a bank. Like you have full on security, leave this at the door, they check you. So even simple things like that, you wouldn't even know where to start from, from a SIM card to food so I had to do it the hard way. And, I could hear everyone wanting to stay in this country, And I'm like, I want that feeling too. I want to leave this country. It was very hard. But what I've chosen to do was I knew that the money would finish. I only came with $5,000 at the time. And obviously they go quite fast, especially with how expensive Australia is. And I knew I had to find employment, a job. So which was very challenging because I love the beach. I love the sun and was the beginning of summer. So everyone was at the beach and it was very tempting to just be there and not look for a job. But I found a way to create a curriculum and I start, my backpack going around between hotels, restaurants, just dropping off curriculum while everyone was at the beach, right? So the time goes fast, money ended up ending. 4 weeks later, someone employs me in a restaurant, right? And my English was still terrible. Like I came here with only yes and no. That's the only thing I knew. So they gave me this opportunity. I was like ready to do my best. But after a week, they start not giving me shifts anymore. And now I know why. Because I was like, how come? because obviously when I was taking the order, right, or customers at the restaurant used to call me because I was a waiter, they were like, bring me, for example, the water. So it's like, for me, it was like water or order. So
Oh,
which one do you want? So it was very, I was sweating, it was very hard. And that wasn't because it was hot. So finished that and I'm like, okay, I have to return to Italy. I'm finishing. What do I do? I can't just after a month go back. So I start the idea of the farm, right? Applying for a farm, the condition obviously very hard. And at the same time, I applied for what I know how to do best, which was dancing. So the Australia community in the dancing industry is much smaller. So I used to send curriculum to Sydney and to a few companies to find an employment. And I was like, if I can't find an employment in the next 2 weeks, then I will have to leave. And that's when a company heard about my career, my dancing, and they asked me to come to Sydney and do an interview. So I had to catch now another plane, go a few times up and down between Sydney because I was terrified at the time to say that I don't live in Sydney because I thought I might not get a job. So I was like,
oh my
I live in.
goodness.
So I was like, I live in Sydney. After 2 days, I left Sydney. They called me. I was back in Gold Coast. They're like, oh no, now come back. I was like, so everything was a challenge. Everything was a story, and I finally got this job, became the team main instructor in the company quite fast. That's where I met also my current wife, which was the manager at the time. And still with not much English, I started the gym and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym, and they want an emergency contact, right? I have no emergency contact. I can't give an emergency contact that takes 2 days to come to Australia. So I asked Alexia, which is my wife, I said, look, can I put you down for an emergency contact? And from there, I just thought that, she was quite nice to me. And as a 22, years old boy, I was like, okay, here there's something. So she was quite nice, which now I know that she was genuinely just being nice. There was no flirting. There was no nothing. She was 5 years older than me, and she was like, no, I just saw you like a little chicken.
You needed help, a little chicken.
Exactly. You just needed help. I felt bad for you. So from there, obviously dancing together, working together, me misinterpreting all the cues.
Oh, I'm cringing so much inside, Cristian, right now. I'm glad this story has a happy ending.
Yes, it does. And then at one point, one night, she sent me a message. She's like, is this, are you flirting with me? So with the Google Translate, I was like translating constantly. And then I'm like, if I say yes, and this goes wrong, tomorrow I have to see her at work and we have to work together. If I say no, maybe I'm missing an opportunity. So like anything in life, there's risk, right? And you have to make decisions. So I made a decision. I'm like, yes, maybe. And then from there, we obviously start dating, and things haven't started actually. The happy ending, that wasn't at all then, because only, this year is our 10th anniversary, and literally only a couple of years ago, things starts to settle a bit more. Every year there's been challenges, which I believe they what made us grow and stir us into this direction. After a year in that company, we made redundant, both of us. I had the visa issues. I had, we had the car at the time. Both of us had the car each to pay for. So we had to move in this granny flat that now the council put it down because it wasn't even legal for human being to live in there. That's how bad it was. But we had to save money, right? We had to save money, put money on the side, and be able to survive. My wife was doing 2 jobs, and for 2 years I couldn't work because of my visa issues. So it was very, very hard. And we made a home out of that little granny flat, and save to invest everything we can into a dance company, because that's what we know we were doing best. And with my professional background, her marketing background, as well as the dancing background, together we had what the business needs, the product and the business side of it. the marketing and so on. So we knew what we wanted to do, and we found some other jobs along the way. 2 years of sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night only, between jumping from jobs to teaching a little bit at night in a hall somewhere, building customers, building money. And eventually we found a place here in Balmain, opened a dance company, which is called Care to Dance. Very successful company. And we grew from there. Now we have, 10 full-time employees, and we moved house to house and renting and finding the best conditions to be able to also be productive. So we got to a point where I found out that, talking to especially the type of company that we have, because it works a bit different than the typical dance studio. We work a lot on private lessons. We have events where we take students with limousine, champagne. So we tend to attract quite a lot of affluent clients, 40, 50 years old and above. They do it for fun, hobby, social dancing, right? So being surrounded by constantly so many successful people, right? You start hearing their stories, and I've noticed that the property market, it's something here in Australia, right? So I always knew that I wanted something more, from my life, because when I left Italy, I had literally a list of things to accomplish. One of them is to get married, have stability, especially because of my life, my childhood, have a family, live somewhere warm on the water, have a house, and be able to, be financially free and location free as well, be able to move and travel. So little by little start ticking, right? But, I started looking into what this is all about, the houses and property market. I had no idea. Now I was 6 years in Australia, roughly. My wife as well didn't know anything about property markets. So we've done what most people do in the beginning. It's like using filters like, it's near a road, it's near a shopping center, near a school. That's it. It means it's a good investment. And we didn't know what I was doing at all. And we got to a point that we realized that we actually can't get into the property market because the deposit and what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, it's impossible, right? So then we just she started crying, and I felt responsible, and I said, I have to do something about it. Put it in the car. Let's just drive around, see me. And we found this place where they sell property off the plan. So at the time, we thought it was a good idea because it will allow us at least a year or two to save some money. So we walked in, very good salesman. We signed documents, with half of them not understanding what we're signing. We put down the little savings we had, which at the time they said, you only need 5% deposit. We'll make it work. So we put the 5% deposit, which was all our savings. And they were like, okay, now we just wait, right? 6 months later, we start getting an email that we need to go to settlement within 2 months. And actually we need another 7% deposit. And I was like, okay, now it's the stress level.
It's
had
higher,
no contact.
It's getting up there.
Yeah. And we didn't have a team around. We didn't have anyone, literally nothing, even family to help, nothing. So we're like, okay, surely there has to be other option. That's not what they said. Then becomes he said, she said. So we start engaging a mortgage broker, and they said, no, you actually have to settle. Let's ask if they want to extend it. Even if you pay interest, we'll give you a bit of time to get to settlement. They were very, very strict on, not helping from the other side. So they said, either you settle or we take it to court, So
trial by fire here, Cristian.
Yeah.
Not a great first experience.
No, it was awful. And we had our son, our eldest. He was almost 1 year old as well. So even there was a whole new adventure, right? Trying to figure out what you're doing between work and family and this experience. And literally, we're trying to sort it out. We went to 6, 7 different mortgage brokers, but because of the business still being quite young, they didn't even want to try to look at the time into our case. So the time was going past, and the money needed to come up, and no one wanted to help us. 6, 7, literally 8 mortgage brokers, no help. And, one night I was like, literally, I was like, okay, I'm going to reverse back to the universe. That's the only thing left for me. And I said, I have to make this work. I have to find this money tonight, or otherwise it's not going to work. We only had 3 days to settle. Sorry, no, at the time it was a week. And then I found the courage, called one of our friends, which I did not want to, and was kind enough to lend us the money, which then we were able to get the loan, even if it was very short notice. We're hoping to get a loan quite quickly. And was one day before settlement. We were there like constantly, did we get the loan? At night, finally got the email from this broker that was the one decided to help us, the ninth one. And him as well, actually, I will thank him forever, put some money in as well, right? He didn't even know us. And that was a massive risk. Actually, I was half terrified because I'm like, who would put some money in for you? They didn't even know you. Why would he do that? Like, there has to be another catch here. I already had one that, and it wasn't. It was just luck, right? It was just the kindness that, there's still people that they kind as much as, there's not that many, but they still are. And between our friend, between a little bit of our saving, between his mortgage broker and luck as well, we got this loan. But now we had to send all the documents. It was Thursday, we only had the Friday. So literally, I could never forget for the rest of my life. I was in the car, gone to the bank in the city in Sydney, asked for this cash out to deposit it physically. They didn't want to give me all that money because I don't think the bank just gives you, even if they yours the money. And then the signature didn't match because I was so like stressed. It was like a movie. Like those movies when you have the clock that's moving, because by 4 p.m., if I wouldn't have deposited everything, they was really serious to take us to court, lose the deposit. It was that bad. And I'm like, okay, I have to 4 o'clock to deposit, take the money, deposit the document. I had my son, my wife in the city running between shops, literally on Pitt Street, and running everywhere with him in the hands. And finally got this money after an hour that the manager came out. Anyway, so it was very intense, and literally it was 3:50 p.m. I'm not kidding. It was like literally like one of those movies, deposit everything. And I was even scared. I'm like, what if I place these documents in the wrong place? What if I give them to the wrong people? Call the mortgage broker, 350. I'm like, I think I've done it. And then we got this first property.
I'm anxious just hearing that story. I think we're going to need to take a break there, Cristian, to give everyone a few moments to calm down. But we'll be back in just a moment to hear more about hopefully how the portfolio since then has been a little bit less stressful for you. See you on the other side of the break.
Imagine being rushed to hospital.
Yep.
And your life changing in an instant. Imagine going through hundreds of tests and 46 weeks of chemo. Now imagine you're a child. That's why Starlight exists, to bring happiness to seriously ill children. Please donate at starlight.org.au.
Welcome back to this episode of the SBI Show. I am joined by Cristian. Cristian, I'm still practicing my breathing after hearing the anxiety that you would have gone through securing your first property. But trial by fire, as I said before, you obviously learned a lot in that process.
Yes. I've learned that you need a team to surround yourself with, and that you need more information.
It was obviously really important to you, though, to get on the property ladder, to really dive down the rabbit hole in that first instance.
Yes, definitely that was the only option, because also to be able to, save money or save your way to freedom financially, it's impossible. So the idea that grew was that it's better to have, properties around that. Obviously, hopefully they grow and you have equity, which at the time I didn't even know what equity means. I have to Google it and use, that as savings and cash to continue from there. So after that property, we were able to breathe because we went to settlement, and that did not stop, despite the experience, did not stop us in wanting to continue. We're like, okay, we need to get our things together. Definitely now, with all the properties that we have, that's the list that performs, because
It's
like I
always the
said,
way.
I know, right? And the other property was definitely not because of the first one. But after that, we start, creating a team around and know exactly who to talk to. And at the same time, if I remember correctly, that was around 2018, there's been also a down in the market, especially in Sydney. So we just settled and, you hear all the stories that all property just goes up and was going down and was like, oh no, now what we're going to do next, right? How are we going to do it? So it was not definitely pleasant, but we kept just going and having faith. And we're meant to, what happened is COVID skipped forward 2 years, and we're trying to save again for the next property, for the deposit, right?
Did you move into did you move into that first property that you bought?
Yes.
Yeah.
We moved into it to be able to use as many of the grants and incentives. We moved there with our son, the eldest, and we stayed there for about 10 months. But it was also very far from work. So after 10 months, an hour drive, we couldn't do that anymore. So we have to start renting and moving closer to the business for practicality, right? So we put, that was the first time we had to now look for tenants and, an agency. So start learning what that means as well. And that became an investment property. And we're looking to save, the funds for our second property for 2 years. COVID happened. And we're like, okay, now what? We had scared of, the business, especially with our business wasn't a necessity, right? And having a family and the property and this, a lot of uncertainties like everyone, right? But what actually helped was that during COVID, because we can't really stand still, I used that time to listen to a lot of podcasts, start literally with the book and pen and like old school. I'm gonna be like that and start writing down all information and trying to learn, right? Learn myself what to do, what property means, what plan to have. And at one point is we decided to use that funds, even if a lot of people at the time was like, don't buy, don't purchase because, COVID and it's very bad. We stayed on purpose away from a lot of those voices and literally turned off the media and the TV and just focused on the family and what we thought was right and trying to get more information. So we invested into the second property through to the podcast, actually. It was a matter of finding someone to trust, a buyer's agent. So we've done also some research, some meetings. We had a few meetings with a few different people. And at the time, still not enough knowledge to make the right decision. So we walked into this so-called buyer's agent at the time and was promising us buy again off the plan in Queensland. We use the money for African villages. We give you 10 years rent guarantee, right? Which this is now is the ABC of red flags.
Wow. I mean, how amazing.
That's right. That's right. But at the time, we're like, okay, sounds good. The only reason we didn't go ahead with was literally instinct. It wasn't information, it was instinct. It was like, look, there's something about it. Let's not go ahead with that person. Which now I'm like, thank God we listened to that instinct. So we've done similar things with the other two buyers agent. And then for the third one, we're like, okay, let's just go ahead with this one from the podcast. They seem, quite reliable. quite very expensive for, especially at the time for us. We didn't have much saving, but this time I don't want to go through what I went through the first time.
Of course.
So luckily, we went ahead. Obviously, it's a very different experience because they do everything, or, find the property, or, it was much more exciting.
You mean you didn't have to run between buildings in Pitt Street?
That's why I could be just on the couch. And they purchased our second property in Adelaide. And so we purchased it. Obviously, we still didn't know much about equity. We didn't know any of that. We just knew that we need properties. That's pretty much it. And after the property, I kept, the podcast. I kept trying to get more information. And this was the first time that when we went to the bank, there was a little bit of equity in there. We're like, this is what equity means then. It felt real. It was like, okay, so this is how people maybe buy more properties, because it didn't make sense how you can buy more properties, which now it does. If I truly believe if the second one was still purchased wrong, would have been very hard. And I think that's why also maybe a lot of people get stuck there. Mm-hmm. Either motivation, right? Because you see that it's nothing growing, or because you do not have the chance, possibility, because 2 out of 2, it won't allow anything to grow.
For sure.
So luckily the second one was good, and we used the equity from the second one to purchase the third. But this time we wanted to change buyer's agent, find someone that we work more closer to. So that was through another podcast. I just pick up the phone. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to call this person. And I called them and I'm like, can you help me? It's like, look, I can't help you directly, but I know this other buyer's agent. They're just starting. I know them well. So I'm like, okay, just trust instinct, right? Make a choice. And we went ahead, and then we stayed with them until now. We work very closely. We catch up sometime for a coffee. So that's how we purchased the third, with the equity and a little bit of saving, predominantly the equity from the second. We purchased the third. And then skip forward a year or two. Then now we had, out of the 3, 2 of them were still performing. And then those 2 allowed to purchase the next 3, pretty much one after the other within 8 months.
Wow.
So now we, the last one we settled was around May, June this year. And we are on 6 now. So yeah.
6 properties. And what are they worth all up? What's your portfolio worth at the moment?
About 4.5 million.
Oh, that's pretty good going. If you only started investing back in 2018, Cristian.
Yeah, that's exactly. So it's, you don't believe it until it happens. So we definitely haven't stopped here, because the more you can see this works, the more confidence you gain, the more strong team you have around. And when I mean team, you literally need buyer's agent, accountant, lawyers, people that you trust, that you work closely with, that I can pick up the phone at night if I have a question, and they can help me. So they play a big role in this as well. And you wanted to go again, becomes very addictive. And I used to hear it quite a lot, but I never really understood why. A little bit like why everyone was staying in Australia. And now after 12 years, I love it. And I'm here. So same thing with properties. Then you understand why. So, we still have quite bigger plans. So definitely watch this space, because we're going to come, if I have the opportunity to, Grace, have another chat with you in a couple of years, we should have achieved some other big thing.
Oh, I look forward to it already, Cristian. What is the ultimate end goal for you and Alexia when it does come to property? What are you hoping will be the outcome of this investment journey?
Good question. Is still the list of the 21 years old Christian that came to Australia. So and we luckily that Alexia and I, we work quite similar. So we work backwards. So the goal is still to have not just financial freedom, but also be free location wise. and be on the beach
Yeah.
where it's sunny, and know that you made it. And someone asked me once, how do you know when you made it? It's pretty much, when you made it, when you go to the restaurant and you don't look at the prices, right? So that's the goal, to be able to, travel and don't overly worry about the price. So you work backwards and you look like, okay, how many properties we need? How data, right? And mixing it with some commercial, perhaps a small building as well with 6-7 units, some commercial, and we're looking also at some self-storage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have
So,
a number in mind or a figure, a dollar value that you want your property portfolio to end up being worth?
should I have one?
You tell me. I mean, you said you were working backwards. Have you had those discussions, or is it just let's keep on going and doing what we're doing while it works?
Literally that. We never really put exact number, a dollar, but more the condition. So we will keep going and going and going until the conditions around us meet our goal, which is what I mentioned before. Once I go to that point and say, okay, I can do this, I can do that, I can work from home, or I can go in the office, I can do both, or then we know, okay, then this is the number.
That's true.
So we definitely very determined, if not even more, to keep going. So the motivation is there, and it's always have a goal. We literally have it on the window. It's not just a romantic way of, we literally write down all the goals, 5-6 years goals, and we always done it. We might go in holidays. What we do in holidays, we sit down at night, even now, put the kids to bed. We talk about the plan, the goal, so you can always stay focused. And it's there on the mirror, we tick along the way, and it's surprised. And we keep the copy because we've seen a lot of them, which is borderline scary. You look like, wow, we planned like a 6 years goal. We didn't know anything. And then a lot of the goals been achieved even earlier than the timeline. So definitely you need to have a goal and keep going at it.
Cristian, we're going to take a quick break there, but don't go away, anyone. We've got plenty more still to come after the break. See you soon. Welcome back to this episode of the SBI Show. I am joined by Cristian Basescu. Cristian, what I love about our conversation today is that a lot of it hasn't actually even really been about property. Yes, the last little bit we have talked around property, but I feel like some of the lessons that you've maybe learned in life, or, through starting a business, or through, I'm sure, your professional dancing career, all of this has really come into its own in property investing. It's taught you things about property investing. Does that ring true to you and your experience?
Yes. Property investment was meant to be more a vehicle to get to the life condition or lifestyle. And you kind of been, I would say, catapulted in there. And it's a bit like saying, throw you in the water, now swim. So now it's about swimming. So it's about continuing this journey. And
because even just really thinking back to you in Romania or even Italy, and you said property it's not held to the same value as it is in Australia. So you've had that completely different mindset shift.
Well, that's exactly right. The property has never really been a topic, right? Anywhere along my career, my life, or growing up. So changing that mentality, it helps, being able to adapt, and perhaps already being moved from Romania to Italy to Australia. You kind of create that system within yourself to be able to adapt and keep an open mind. And that's a good point, because I believe that has been a big factor in also where we are today, because when we start the investment journey, that's why the first one was in Sydney, because you're surrounded by many, many people and friends that invest, invest in Sydney, stay in Sydney. I don't know about another state. You can't see the property. All-minded, right? And I believed I was able to make more that cold blood decision to be like, I'm going to Adelaide, which I never even been to Adelaide, because I wasn't emotionally attached to Sydney, because Sydney wasn't my home, became my home, but I have many homes technically. So that's definitely helped to break through that noise of investing in Sydney and be able to be open-minded. If numbers make sense, if on paper makes sense, be of faith, be of instinct, be of information, be of the team, then go for it. And that's what helped.
I also would love to stress to everyone who is listening, Cristian, just how hard you have clearly worked for all of this to become a reality. Like, kudos to you. Congratulations to you and Alexia for making all of this. Like, you've created this journey and this path and this portfolio that is only going to get bigger and bigger because you're so dedicated and committed to making it work. Like, you're doing such an amazing job.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. Maybe that's why, I start having some white hair at 32 years old. Maybe that's what happened. But it's all worth it.
Yeah. So
thank you.
Any new properties coming up soon, or a little bit of a holding period before you do embark on the commercial ones or the units and the self-storage?
We're going away now, because 10 years ago I made a promise to my wife that I would take her to Bora Bora for our 10 years anniversary. And next week we're going there for 10 days. It'll be our first holiday without the kid.
Amazing.
They would stay with my mother for 10 days. So we're going there. So keep my promise. I'm like, are you sure I made that promise? Like, yes, you did. I'm like, okay. So after, when we come back, we already have a plan, because we work with a plan. So yeah, we will start looking at our next chapter, literally. Yeah. So watch this space.
Watch this space. Absolutely. Already looking forward to our next chat. Cristian, thank you so much for being so honest and open and sharing your story today. I think there's probably going to be more than a few listeners out there who this story really resonates with and motivates them to continue their investing journey as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. And if I can help, why not? There's enough for everyone.
To everyone who is listening or love, we hope you have enjoyed this episode with Cristian. Like or review us on whatever platform that you do listen to your podcasts on. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, editor@smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. You should also reach out if, like Cristian, you think you have a good investment story to share. Otherwise, check us out on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and Instagram. Until next time, stay safe and well wherever you're listening from. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.
Feeling trapped by rising interest payments? Escape from mortgage prison with expert refinancing assistance from Finny. We have helped hundreds of borrowers break free from higher loan repayments by finding a more suitable loan. Our expert team can quickly assess your situation, and if there's a better lender available, we'll find it fast. Don't delay. Call today. Speak to a Finny mortgage specialist on 02 8866 2444 or visit our website at www.finny.com.au.